The candle quivers in the half-dark, its light a frail tongue against the swallowing black. Wax drips along its iron holder, pooling like melted bone upon the table's rough grain. Around it, shapes shift in uneasy sleep, strangers drawn together by the tyranny of distance, by the merciless roads that coil through the colonial wilderness. Their bodies rise and fall in uneven rhythm, a chorus of breath and muffled coughs, the sound of survival pressed tight against necessity. The inn itself seems alive, breathing with them, its timbers groaning in the cold, its shadows swollen with secrets. The air is heavy, dense with the stale perfume of sweat, damp wool, and extinguished fire. Candle smoke lingers like a ghost above the rafters, while beneath the beds the ceaseless whisper of unseen life stirs. Bedbugs, lice, and fleas, the cursed companions of the traveler, crawl unseen across straw and skin. A woman, cloaked in widow's garb, lies stiff upon a shared mattress, her eyes wide open, untrusting of the peace offered by such a place. She hears the faint scuttle within the seams, the sharp sting at her ankle, the subtle itch that grows like dread. Her lips press together, refusing to betray fear. To complain is to mark oneself as delicate, fastidious, unfit for this rugged world. So she swallows the bitterness and waits for morning's fragile mercy. Beside her, a merchant turns in his sleep, muttering broken fragments of a deal struck too hastily at the tavern below. His breath carries the acrid tang of cheap rum, spilling into the narrow space between them. He does not know her name, nor she his, yet here they lie, two bodies sharing warmth as though bound by covenant. In this dim world, privacy is a foreign luxury, an extravagance mocked by cold nights and thin walls. To refuse the shared bed would be to endure the judgment of innkeepers and strangers alike. Here, in these cursed resting places, the body itself becomes a form of currency, traded for warmth, for passage, for silence. From beyond the thin door, the echo of laughter rises, a cruel, jagged sound that cuts through the hush. Men huddle near the embers of the common room's hearth, dice rattling, mugs colliding. Their merriment is forced, an armor against the gnaw of hunger and the ache of long miles. A child whimpers softly upstairs, shushed by a mother's lullaby that is more prayer than song. Even in this sanctuary, the world outside presses close. News travels with the coaches, rumors of uprisings, of laws broken, of new taxes choking the life of the colonies. Yet within these walls, all politics dissolve into the primal struggle of rest. How to find a night's reprieve amid filth, noise, and crawling flesh. The widow turns her head toward the table. There, an old key lies abandoned, its rust catching the candle's glow. Heavy, iron, ancient in its simplicity, it rests like a symbol of both escape and imprisonment. She imagines doors it might open. Another inn, another chamber, another night of the same. A door to freedom, perhaps, or to deeper captivity. Her hand twitches but does not move toward it. Instead, she clasps the edge of her cloak tighter to her throat, as if to guard against more than cold. Against eyes, against insects, against despair. The inn's timbers creak again, a groan that seems to come from deep within its bones. In the silence that follows, she can hear her own heart, steady, insistent. She remembers the voice of her late husband, a whisper once offered by firelight. Endure the night, for dawn will always return. His absence weighs like a stone, yet his words remain, echoing in the darkness. She lets the memory wash over her, and for a moment, the foul air sweetens, the crawling beneath her skin dulls, and she feels herself anchored not only in survival, but in something that lies beyond survival. Still, the night stretches on. The candle flares, then sputters low, threatening to abandon its fragile vigil. Shadows swell across the walls, bending into grotesque shapes, faces that leer, hands that reach. She closes her eyes to shut them out, but the darkness behind her lids holds its own terrors. Images of bodies crammed too close, of vermin feasting without mercy, of journeys still to come. She forces her breath slow, steady, a prayer hidden in rhythm. Around her, others stir in restless chorus. A cough, a shifting limb, a whispered curse. Together they form a living tapestry of endurance, woven with threads of silence and suffering. She wonders what histories are being born in this very room. Perhaps the soldier dreaming of glory will awaken tomorrow with fever. His life ended before the first battle is fought. Perhaps the merchant will rise to betray a neighbor, his bargain sealing another's ruin. Perhaps she, weary widow, will one day tell her children of the nights she endured among strangers, of the cursed inns where survival was carved from discomfort and fear. These walls hold more than bodies. They hold the seeds of destinies, some grand, some forgotten, all forged in the crucible of endurance. Outside, the world remains hushed. Snow begins to fall, silent as ash, blanketing the stagecoaches in frozen earth. Within, the inn persists, trembling with human breath, haunted by its crawling life. The widow drifts, not into sleep, but into a half-dream, a liminal state between waking and surrender. She imagines doors opening, not to another inn, but to a place without keys, without crawling creatures, without judgment. A place where rest is not bartered, but given. For a moment, the fantasy is enough. The candle gutters once more, then steadies, its flame thin but resolute. Morning lies just beyond reach, but its promise is already stirring in the cold air. She exhales, slow, deliberate, surrendering her vigil to time. Whatever dawn brings, be it salvation or another cursed road, she will meet it. And as the darkness holds its breath, she waits, her story entwined with countless others who have passed through these strange sanctuaries, cursed yet necessary, where survival was never clean, never gentle, but always human. And so the night lingers, heavy, imperfect, holy in its endurance. The inn remains, a monument to strangeness and survival, its beds cursed and its walls alive. But within those walls, the seeds of resilience are sown, and in their fragile germination lies the whisper of what is to come. The hoofbeats fade into the night, swallowed by mud and frost. A stagecoach groans outside, its wheels locked in silence, while within the inn a heavy door closes with the sigh of old timber. Shadows pool across the room, broken only by the trembling glow of a single oil lamp that drips smoke like incense toward the rafters. The air is thick, damp wool, stale ale, and the sharp tang of iron from boots left in a haphazard pile. Beds are crammed together against the walls, a press of straw and rough linen that dares to call itself rest. Each bed holds not family but strangers, bound together in the enforced intimacy of exhaustion. Here, survival has no room for delicacy. Privacy is not offered, nor expected. The night belongs to bodies stacked close, warmth traded like coin, unease accepted as ritual. A young smith lies awake, his chest rising with shallow rhythm, his soot-stained fingers clutching the cold curve of his hammer as though it were a talisman. Beside him snores a soldier, his drunken breath thick with ale, words spilling in fragments of half-remembered battles and lost companions. The smith does not move, does not dare, for each shift invites the whisper of crawling vermin in the straw. Bedbugs trace invisible lines across skin, their presence as relentless as hunger. His eyes track the room instead, the flicker of the lamp on the timber walls, the damp stain blooming like rot near the ceiling, the restless stirrings of others who fight their own silent wars against sleeplessness. The night stretches like a tether, binding them all together. In one corner, a mother hushes her child, rocking softly, the lullaby fragile against the inn's heavy silence. In another, two men mutter under their breath, gambling with dice rolled in shadow, the clatter of wood against wood disguised as prayer. The smith listens, drawing in the texture of this cursed resting place, the hiss of embers dying in the hearth below, the shifting of blankets steeped in dust, the quiet groans of timber burdened by weight and weather. He feels the inn pressing in around him, not a refuge, but a crucible, where humanity is reduced to breath, to warmth, to waiting. His thoughts wander beyond the inn, to the forge left behind, to the ringing of metal against anvil, sparks flying like fireflies in the dark. Here, there is no flame to shape destiny, only the suffocating nearness of strangers. Yet even in this closeness, there is a strange kinship. He does not know their names, their lives, their sins, but in this night they are tethered, souls compressed into one chamber of endurance. The judgment of fastidiousness, whispered against those who refuse to share a bed, circles in his memory. To be separate is to be condemned. To endure together, even in filth and unease, is the only absolution. He tightens his grip on the hammer, feeling its cold weight against his chest, a promise of identity in a place where all else is stripped away. Outside, the wind moans through the cracks, a reminder of roads yet to be traveled, of trials still ahead. The lamp flickers low, then steadies, its light fragile but insistent. He exhales slowly, letting the tension seep from his ribs, surrendering not to rest but to resignation. This night will not pass with comfort, but it will pass, and in its passing it will bind him, silently, to every restless soul around him. Somewhere beyond the walls, dawn gathers its strength. The smith closes his eyes at last, hearing the shuffle of bodies settling, the sigh of collective surrender. The inn holds them all in its weary embrace, cursed yet necessary, strange yet familiar. The hammer warms against his chest, and as sleep steals over him, he dreams not of fire nor iron, but of breath, the shared breath of survival, heavy and human, waiting for morning to break. A pale gray light seeps through the cracks of the shutters, a hesitant dawn pressing its fingertips against the timber bones of the inn. The night has not yet loosed its grip, but its edges have begun to fray. The room is a fragile tapestry of sighs and coughs, woven together by straw beds groaning under the restless weight of those who dared to close their eyes. A woman rises slowly, her cloak gathered at her chest, the fabric carrying the smell of wood smoke and travel. Her hands move across its worn seams as if tracing a map of survival, each frayed thread a testament to nights endured, each stitch a silent prayer whispered in candlelight. She draws in the heavy air, thick with mildew, sweat, and the lingering sweetness of porridge bubbling faintly in the common room beyond. And it fills her lungs like a weight she cannot expel. Across the room, shapes stir. A man twists beneath a coarse blanket, his lips moving with fevered fragments of speech, dreams leaking into waking world. His sweat beads and drips, darkening the straw beneath him, leaving the air laced with a sharp, metallic tang. She turns away, pressing her palm against the rough wall, its wood splintered and scarred with marks left by other travelers. Some are names carved into the cedar, letters shallow and hurried, others symbols scratched in haste, echoes of lives that passed through and vanished. The wall hums with memory, a testament to countless wanderers who left nothing behind but scratches and silence. As she lingers there, she feels the building itself holding its breath, as though the inn is a vessel of secrets too fragile to be spoken. The stillness is broken by a crow outside, its caw harsh and jagged, striking against the silence like iron on stone. Its shadow flickers across the shutters, an omen in flight. The sound jolts the child in the far corner, who cries out before being gathered into a mother's arms. The lullaby that follows is little more than a murmur, a rhythm of survival disguised as comfort. The woman listens, her own throat tightening with the ache of absence. She remembers her children's voices, soft with innocence, left behind in another town, another life, as she journeyed onward through the cruel arteries of these colonies. That memory rises in her chest like a blade, sharp and merciless. She lowers her hand from the wall to the rough table by the door. A trunk rests against it, battered and dulled by years of travel, its iron fittings rusted, its leather straps torn thin. She runs her fingers across its dust, feeling the grit against her skin, as though the object itself has absorbed centuries of exhaustion. It holds stories untold, possessions of lives that have passed through, or perhaps nothing but emptiness. Yet even emptiness becomes sacred in such places, a vessel for hope, despair, or escape. She lingers there, her hand trembling, uncertain whether to open it, uncertain whether it contains solace or only another reminder of what has been lost. The inn groans again, timbers shifting as if weary of its burden. The woman inhales the sour air once more, steadying herself. She turns to the narrow door leading to the common room. Its hinges squeak softly, as if warning against intrusion. Beyond, the promise of warmth glows faintly, a fire smoldering, bread being torn, voices murmuring in subdued tones. The door itself stands as a threshold, a veil between anonymity and exposure, between fragile solitude and the harsh scrutiny of strangers. She places her palm against it, the wood cool and rough, and closes her eyes. In that moment, she is both prisoner and pilgrim, bound by necessity, driven by memory. She exhales slowly, whispering words meant for no ear but her own. "Let this not be my tomb." The sound dissolves into the morning hush, carried upward into the rafters where dust hangs suspended in golden strands of light. Her voice, though faint, is a declaration, a refusal to surrender to the crawling filth, the strange intimacy, the weight of silence. She tightens her cloak, straightens her back, and steps toward the door. The hallway beyond is not salvation, but it is movement. And movement, however uncertain, is life. Behind her, the room remains, heavy with breath and history, its cursed bed still cradling the fragile bodies of those caught between rest and ruin. Ahead lies another road, another day, another inn. But for now, she walks into the dim light of morning, carrying with her the weight of endurance, the ghost of memory, and the quiet resolve that survival itself is a form of defiance. The embers in the hearth glow like dying eyes, their breath thin, their warmth fading into the cavernous dark. Smoke curls upward in ribbons, staining the rafters with shadows that cling like sorrow. A traveler kneels close, her cloak frayed at the hem, its fabric heavy with the sense of pine smoke, sweat, and the bitter tang of rain-soaked roads. She presses her palm against the cold stones, grounding herself against the hush that fills the room. Around her, the inn murmurs with restless souls, bodies pressed together in a communion not of faith but of necessity. The sound is a low chorus, blankets shifting, straw rustling, coughs swallowed into sleeves. Above it all, there is the quieter menace, the whisper of bedbugs scuttling unseen through seams and straw, those invisible tyrants of the night whose hunger is without mercy. A father sits in the far corner, his form hunched, arms cradling a child whose breath trembles between whimpers and sleep. The child's face glows pale in the failing firelight, fragile as porcelain, a spirit hovering between comfort and fever. The father hums a rhythmless lullaby, his voice cracked, the sound more vow than song. Each note drifts into the smoky air and dissolves before reaching the rafters, leaving only the echo of longing. The traveler watches him with the silent reverence of one who understands loss too deeply to name. Around them, men and women shift in their straw beds, unwilling witnesses to one another's private griefs. Survival has stripped them of barriers. The body, the voice, even sorrow itself is no longer private here. The smell of beer and stale bread lingers, bitter in the air. On the bedside table, a key lies abandoned, bent and rusted, its iron edges dulled by years of touch. It rests like an omen, heavy, silent, full of promise and dread. Perhaps it unlocks another door, another inn with the same cursed straw, the same crawling vermin, the same reluctant warmth of strangers. Or perhaps it leads to something else, a passage beyond, a room untainted by filth. The traveler's eyes fix on it, her breath halting, as if the key itself could dictate her destiny. She dares not reach for it, for to hold it would be to choose. And tonight, she cannot choose. The room breathes with the weight of its occupants. Every cough, every shifting limb, every creak of timber seems amplified, as though the inn itself is alive, listening. The traveler closes her eyes, feeling the sting of smoke in her lungs, and lets the silence press against her ribs. She whispers into the dark, not words of hope, but words of endurance. Let me rise. It is not a plea for comfort, but for continuity, for the stubborn persistence of breath. She grips her cloak tighter, drawing it over her chest as if it were armor against more than cold, against despair, against invisibility. The embers flare once, a brief defiance, then sink lower, their glow thin and wavering. The shadows swell, reaching across the room, swallowing faces, stretching long fingers across the floorboards. In that deepening dark, each traveler becomes both known and unknowable, their stories silent, their burdens heavy. Yet in the hush, something binds them, a kinship unspoken, born not of choice, but of necessity. Here, in this crucible of hunger, crawling vermin, and breath shared against the cold, humanity survives by inches. Not nobly, not cleanly, but stubbornly. The traveler lowers her head, letting her eyes close at last. She does not fall into sleep, but into something nearer surrender, a letting go of the night's crawling torment, a fragile trust that dawn will arrive. Outside, the wind carries the scent of snow, a promise of purity against the filth of the inn. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolls, muffled, mournful, counting down the hours until morning. The sound threads through the silence, settling into her chest like an anchor. The embers sigh and shrink into ash. The room exhales. And in that stillness, between the last warmth of fire and the first cry of dawn, the traveler waits, suspended. Her story is not yet finished, her journey not yet defined. But in the weight of the cursed night, she gathers herself like iron under heat, shaping into something harder, something ready to step beyond the inn's frail threshold. The morning will come, and when it does, it will not find her broken. Moonlight bleeds through a grime-streaked window, its silver blades slicing across the air thick with smoke and sweat. Dust motes drift like ash, suspended above the coarse straw that pretends to be bedding. A groan rises from the darkness, half cough, half curse, followed by the creak of boards bowing beneath shifting bodies. The inn is no sanctuary, only a shell of timber and plaster, trembling under the burden of strangers forced into intimacy. Each breath is shared, each twitch of muscle felt by another. The silence itself is restless, broken by the furtive scratch of vermin burrowed deep in the seams, by the faint rustle of lice taking their toll unseen. In this cursed chamber, sleep is not a gift but a bargain, and one paid with unease. Near the window, a scribe lies awake, her ink-stained hands curled tight as though still clutching a quill. She had once balked at the thought of sharing a bed, her refusal dismissed as fastidiousness, as though modesty itself were sin. But tonight, she does not resist. The straw beneath her reeks of bodies long gone, of spilled ale, of old sweat worked into its very fibers. She inhales it all, each sour note braided into the music of survival. A cloak pulled tight against her throat is her only shield, its threads carrying the faint, bittersweet scent of herbs once burned for prayer. She shifts, her bones stiff, and feels the phantom crawl of vermin across her skin. Yet, she remains still, allowing resignation to weave itself into her breath. A child whimpers from across the room, soothed by the soft rocking of a mother's lullaby. The melody is fragile, almost inaudible, yet it gathers the silence like a thread, binding the weary together. Two men whisper in the shadows, dice tumbling quietly in their palms, the muted clatter of wood against wood hidden beneath low laughter. The scribe watches them, her gaze tracing the flicker of lamplight across their faces, wondering which is hungrier, for coin or for escape. Outside, the wind batters the walls, rattling the shutters as if the night itself were desperate to be let in. Inside, the inn folds in upon itself, every sigh and shifting limb another stitch in a shroud woven from exhaustion. Her hand drifts to a small basin at her side. Its water is stale, cold, rimmed with dust, yet she cups it in her palm and lifts it to her lips. The spoon she uses is tarnished, its surface dented and uneven, but it gleams faintly in the lamplight, a fragile reminder of ceremony amid decay. The taste is metallic, but it steadies her, anchoring her to something beyond discomfort. She remembers the rhythm of her pen scratching across parchment, the smell of hot wax sealing letters meant to travel farther than she ever could. In this cursed bed, those memories feel holy, rituals of solitude that distance cannot erase. The inn groans with the weight of its tenants, timber shuddering in chorus with their bodies. She presses her palm against the wall, its splintered grain rough beneath her skin, and feels the heartbeat of the house itself, ancient, weary, still enduring. In that touch, she finds kinship, not with the strangers around her, nor with the vermin gnawing in silence, but with the wood, with the walls that have borne centuries of restless nights and muttered prayers. She whispers to it, words caught between confession and vow, "Let me rise." The sound is faint, swallowed by the room, but it leaves her lighter, tethered to something larger than herself. The lamp sputters, its flame shrinking into a frail ember. Darkness folds deeper, swallowing faces, blending bodies into one breathing mass. She closes her eyes, not in surrender, but in recognition. This night is not eternal. Dawn waits beyond the shutters, patient, inevitable. And when it comes, she will carry this kinship, the memory of whispers, of vermin, of tarnished spoons and heavy breath, into the next road, the next chamber, the next cursed resting place. For even filth can cradle resolve. Even strangeness can teach survival. And in the hush between darkness and dawn, she finds her strength waiting. The first light of dawn slips like a blade between the shutters, carving pale lines across the worn planks of the inn. The room holds the breath of the night still, thick, damp, heavy with mildew, sweat, and the faint sourness of ale spilled hours before. The air clings to skin like a shroud. Straw-stuffed mattresses sag beneath the weight of restless bodies, their seams alive with the ceaseless stir of vermin. Bedbugs creep in silence, leaving their invisible signatures upon flesh, reminding every traveler that survival is never clean, never merciful. A woman stirs in her bed, her fingers clutching the coarse blanket with the desperation of a drowning soul clinging to driftwood. Her throat burns with thirst, her lips cracked, her breath shallow. The taste in her mouth is metallic, tinged with fear. She turns her gaze toward the narrow table where a single coin gleams faintly in the gray light. Its edges are worn smooth, its surface smudged with dirt and touch, yet it holds the weight of passage, the cost of a night in this cursed shelter. She studies it as though it were a mirror, reflecting both her fragility and her defiance. To pay is to endure, to purchase a night's reprieve at the expense of dignity and peace. She does not move to take it back. The bargain has been made, the price already carved into her skin by crawling things and sleepless hours. Her eyes drift to the walls, where faint carvings etch the timber. Names, initials, crude drawings scrawled by hands long vanished. They are whispers left behind by the countless who have passed through: merchants, soldiers, widows, fugitives. Each mark is a fragment of survival, scratched into wood as though to declare, "I was here. I endured." She presses her palm against the cool grain, feeling the ridges beneath her skin, and wonders what mark she will leave behind when dawn drags her onward. From beyond the door, faint sounds stir: the clatter of a pot, the muffled sob of a child, the hushed murmur of voices half afraid to break the silence. The world outside this room is awakening, indifferent to the bodies still caught between night and day. The woman shifts, her cloak heavy upon her shoulders, carrying the scent of damp wool and old smoke. She inhales deeply, drawing into her chest both the staleness of the present and the memory of a past that smelled of rosemary soup and warm bread, echoes of a home long out of reach. The oil lamp at the bedside gutters, its flame bowing low before straightening, trembling but unextinguished. Its flickering light casts shadows like figures across the walls, ghosts of travelers who once lay here, ghosts of choices made and futures lost. She closes her eyes, listening to the sound of her own breath. It is steady, persistent, stubborn. And in that sound, she hears not despair, but endurance. The inn has not claimed her, not yet. A stagecoach rumbles faintly in the distance, wheels grinding against frozen earth, a reminder that movement awaits. Beyond the shutters, the frost-bright world gathers itself, ready to swallow those who dare step into it. She does not rise yet. She lingers in the hush, her body still, her spirit gathering like smoke before a flame. Her lips part, whispering words meant only for the silence. "I will not be forgotten." The coin gleams once more in the light. The lamp flickers. The walls hold their breath. And in this moment between night's decay and morning's promise, she prepares. Not for comfort, not for peace, but for the simple, sacred act of survival.